Hi guys, welcome to Hardcore. I'm gonna give you a little real. We've been prepping for this for about 30 minutes, and I wish we would have recorded it. We might have to start doing that so people can just get the real of us, Miko.
Like the bloopers.
The bloopers, yeah, but like keep them in and just like make it part of the pod. I don't know, that's some of my favorite things that I listen to on other people's podcasts. Anyway, hi there guys, welcome to Hardcore. I'm Chell, that's Miko. We're across the world from each other. What's up, girl?
Hi everyone. Hi Celestina. Nice to be here again.
Alrighty, guys, we are going deeper into Saturn returns. We're going to be giving you some pretty specific examples of humans that you should know, maybe know a little bit about. Miko had to do a ton of research on this human, but neither of us know celebrities, so it totally makes sense. And we are just focusing on Saturn returns today. So if you need some more info on the background of all of these different stages of life, check out last week's episode where we broke down Saturn returns, Uranus oppositions, all of the other ones whose names escape me at the moment. Go back, listen to that episode, and then come back to this episode where we are diving deeper into the Saturn return. And I'm not going to say how to look at your chart for a Saturn return because, as Miko mentioned last week, it's best if someone else does your Saturn return for you several years into and or after your actual Saturn return. So, without further ado, who are we talking about today?
Thank you for the intro. Today we're talking about Miley Cyrus and Anne Hathaway. So you chose Anne Hathaway, I chose Miley Cyrus. The way that I chose her was just by Googling which celebrity is in their 30s right now, because I couldn't come up with a better way to find someone. And 30s or 60s, but I did have Robert Downey Jr. in mind. I did have Tom Cruise in mind, and maybe we will do an episode on them at some point down the line. Because I also like conspiracy theories. Oh, sorry, I said it again. I did it again.
Oh, what are they called? Folk fables. What did we call them last time? We can't say the tinfoil tales. Yeah, we can't say
tinfoil tales.
Can't say CTs on the show.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that kind of stuff as well. At least when it's palpable, like things that make sense. There are some things that I just cannot connect with, but some do make a lot of sense, and one of those things is of course revolving around Scientology, and that's when Tom Cruise is being mentioned a lot because he's like the face of Scientology by now. They're using him very well, and that's why I was like, okay, that's great, but for him I couldn't find an exact birth time. And I then found Miley Cyrus, and I was like, okay, yeah, she's super interesting because, of course, everyone pretty much, if you haven't been living under a rock, and I don't really hear much about celebrities, but that I heard, the Wrecking Ball incident with Miley Cyrus, and or her twerking. I think she invented it, didn't she?
I feel like she was the one. She invented it, but I feel like she helped publicize it. About 5 to 8 years ago, maybe a decade ago now.
So yeah, that incident I also heard of. So I always believe I don't really listen or watch the news, which a lot of people criticize me for, because then I'm also not up to date on political things. But honestly, everything that is very relevant, you will hear from other people. People will talk about it. And you can now debate whether Miley Cyrus working or riding a wrecking ball is worthy news or news that you should hear of, but it was definitely a topic that people were talking about. So that's what I heard from her. Then of course as well, Hannah Montana, how she transitioned from this girl that was very a role model to a lot of kids into a person that was half naked a lot of times. And when you're looking at her chart, it reveals a lot about this situation, why that may have happened. So let's take a bit of a look at what we can see here. So if you're not watching on Spotify or YouTube, I'm going to try my best to describe it in the best way that I can. So we are looking at a manifesting generator, a 2-5 profile manifesting generator. She has her throat defined, her G-center, her sacral, and her emotional solar plexus defined. Everything else is undefined. And the head is entirely open. So there are no gates coming out of the head. And I think that this specific way of combination is fascinating to me, because we have a manifesting generator, which is theoretically she has the pure manifesting generator channel, the 3420, which really gives her a super spontaneous insight into her gut instinct. But she also has the emotional solar plexus defined, and that is unconsciously defined. So she needs her time to make decisions. And that can be such a feeling of being torn apart into two different directions for her, because on one hand she needs to wait and take time, and on the other hand there's this gut instinct that has a direct conscious connection to her throat, and this is the thing that she probably related to the most, connected to with the most, because it's not only a conscious, fully conscious channel, but it is also her personality, sun and earth. So the earth is defined in gate 20, and the personality sun is defined in gate 34. So it is such a huge part of who she is and who she believes that she is as well. So the personality, conscious personality, is really what you believe you are, who you are yourself. Whereas the design element is more of the things that are unconscious, of course, but also things that other people see in you. And to me, this combination of having such a strong, very present 3420 channel, and then having the connection to the emotional solar plexus with the 59.6, which is unconscious, it must have been really difficult for her to really align those two elements, and to even realize that she has an emotional solar plexus and she needs to wait out her emotional wave, which is the root of all waves. That's what it's called. It is tribal, but the 59.6 is like the root of all waves in human design. And that the emotions within her are mainly triggered by very close family and friends. So because it's a tribal wave, it's something that is mainly triggered by family and friends. But yeah, I feel like it must have been very confusing, and you can also see it in her life. I mean, I feel like she has made a lot of decisions probably spontaneously because she felt like this was the right thing to do for her through the 3420 channel. But she may have wanted, or she maybe should have taken a bit more time to sleep on it and wait for it before making certain decisions. The fascinating thing is that because she's such a public figure, you can really see a lot of her development throughout her life. And she went from this role model kid to a wild child in her teenage tween years, and now she feels like she has found herself, or she's really able to connect with her inner self and provide herself the love that she wants and needs. And you can also hear that in her songs a lot of times with I Can Buy Myself Flowers, for example, or also her singing about that this was a time period where she was young. I don't know the exact lyrics, but I really love that, the way that she said it, that you may have considered her crazy or wild or something, but it's just that she's now older and wiser, and that she doesn't need to behave that way anymore. And you will see that in her Saturn return as to why this may be the case, that she feels this wholeness. So in her nodes, the interesting aspect as well is that when you're looking at the nodes, when you're looking at a Saturn return, you're focusing on the sun and earth. So the incarnation cross that you're moving from, the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix, she will be moving into the right angle cross of the four ways. You focus on that, then you focus on the profile that she's moving from, 2-5 to 3-5, and you focus on the nodes. So these are the main elements. When you're looking at a solar return, on the other hand, which is every year that you would look at your yearly forecast for you personally, you would look at all of these elements. You would really take a deep dive into all of these planets, all of these elements, not just the rough themes. And the reason for that being is that a solar return provides you with characteristics that you will face or that you will experience, whereas a Saturn return, Chiron return, Uranus opposition, it basically provides you with a potential. So it's a very positive reading that you're receiving, but the timing needs to be right and you need to be able to connect with it already. So for the first Saturn return, that's why we said that it is important for you to do it while you're kind of already moving into maybe mid-30s. You're not really in your 20s anymore. You're definitely in your 30s when you're getting the Saturn return reading, because you will already start to understand what that means exactly. You have already kind of encountered that energy. And when you're below 30, you're still very, very young in your mind and even in the human design field. I mean, back in the day, you would look at the Saturn opposition as, so this would be around 15. This would be the time where you would become ready to step into the next phase of your life. But our Saturn or our Uranus opposition is now equal to the Saturn opposition back in the day, which is crazy. It's wild that we have to kind of wait until we're 40 to get our act together, whereas back in the day it was with 15. And the reason being is, and back in the day I'm talking about before 17, I don't know the exact date, but it was 17 something, where Uranus became this shift within us. And there is never a fixed time. Like, even if I would know the exact date right now, the exact year, it doesn't mean that bang, it happens there, but it's just a gradual progression. And until even humans realize how much slower we're evolving, it even takes longer. So, yeah. Would you like to say anything about this up to now?
2 cents on that is, I think we're living longer too, right? So that change also kind of happened Industrial Revolution times, right? When machines came in, people started living longer because their lives weren't as intense, like with farm work and doing laborious tasks, right? So I feel like this change kind of came in that way, in that time. So we are living longer. So it kind of makes sense that we're developing a little bit later, kind of. But also, I think it would be really helpful for people to understand themselves better at a younger age. But you know, that's my 2 cents on it. That we are, yeah, no, that's it. That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, and additionally, technology is moving much faster. So I feel like our understanding of time has also sped up. Like the way that we feel about time. I don't think, and I don't know if we've had this discussion, but I talked about this recently where I'm like, you know, everything is so much faster. We are able to just press a button and call someone. Back in the day, you had to send a letter. You had to wait for that letter to arrive. And if it was still on a carriage, it would take weeks, depending on where that person was. Maybe even years. I don't know. No, probably not that long. But it would just take so much longer. And now everything is just so fast. People expect responses immediately. You're able to learn anything you want at any point in time. It's just crazy fast. And I wonder, feel... Yeah?
Go ahead. No, continue.
And I feel like this is this speeding up process of the external world is also making us feel like our days are becoming shorter. And I don't believe that a 40-year-old back in the day, maybe in 1700, that they had the same feeling of time that a 40-year-old has these days. I know that adults always say that time is speeding up and that the older you get, the faster you feel the time run, but I don't believe it's the same. I really have a feeling that our time is speeding up even faster than back in the day.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, think of how many time sucks we have throughout the day, how many hours people spend scrolling, doing whatever, right? How many distractions we have outside of just being present with ourselves and taking time with ourselves, right? Because I feel like time does go slower when you're doing introspection or like retrospection on things versus doing things in the moment, in particular on a screen, not outside in nature. So yeah, our lives have shifted significantly since, and I think you're right, that has something to do with it. I wonder though, with like the advent of now having more information, I wonder if there will be a shift in the younger generations of this wanting to understand themselves better at an earlier age. Because I know with our generation at least, right, like human design, most people in our generation probably weren't introduced to it before their like mid-20s, realistically, like 10-ish plus years ago. So I wonder now with more information being available, if the younger generations, or if people our age who now have kids of younger generations, are going to bring this knowledge in. And I wonder if that'll make those children, one, just live out themselves more fluidly, and then two, more introspective / retrospective, living into their design, their life a little bit more fluidly than past or their future generations, you know?
I'm praying that that's the case.
Yeah.
And I really feel like human design is a great tool to support kids and teenagers on this journey. You don't have to have your Saturn return read as a kid or a teenager. It's probably not going to serve you that well. It's really something that you need to experience and live through before you can even grasp the power of it. But understanding your own design and staying true to your strategy and authority is going to help you navigate everything. So, yeah, I hope that what you're saying is going to happen or is happening.
Dude, 2027 is right around the corner. We're going to see. We're really going to see.
That's so crazy. Since I've known this date, I'm like, oh my God, it's coming so fast. And every time something happens in the world, I'm like, oh my God, 2027 is hitting again. Yeah.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great, guys.
Yep, the phoenix has to burn down before rising again, which is also Miley Cyrus's
Speaking of,
cross. It's her cross, the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. And this cross has this channel 3420. So yeah, it's in her sun and her earth. And it also has the 5559. So it is a really interesting cross where it's about the individual. They really need to follow their own path connected to this gate 55 is really about if you're meeting Miley Cyrus and you are reacting to her behavior, then you're not for her. And she is someone that it's sadly in the unconscious aspect, but I hope that she got to connect with this aspect of her as well, because it's about connecting with spirit and connecting with source, but choosing the right situations and the right people to trigger it out of you. And the right people won't mind you triggering it, you being triggered or you triggering it. And also the right people won't feel triggered by it as much. So they will stick around and you will be able to move to the next stage, to get closer to source. And really following, and this is what she's been doing. I mean, she's been someone who's gone through, she's just followed what she felt was right for her in that moment, which, yeah, maybe just sit with it a little longer, but it's still for her being this individual power and standing up for what she believes in, following what she believes in against everyone else saying something about it, probably. This has a lot to do with the sleeping phoenix. In design nodes, what is also interesting is that she's moving from 15 to 10. And this is very much connected to moving. So wait, before stepping into what that is connected to, when you're looking at the nodes, you're only looking at the environment. So it's the stage that you are encountering in your life. And it is also the stage/environment. I want to avoid using environment as much as possible because we do have environment as well in human design, and that can get confusing. But we're now talking about the nodal environment, and from now on I'm just going to use stage as a word. This is what you're going to encounter on this stage. So you're going to see people around you react a certain way. And that doesn't mean that everyone is going to see the same environment. It is really specific to you. It is something that you will selectively see in the environment, because this is the space, the environment, or the stage that is going to help you grow from these experiences that you're seeing. And then there is also a certain way to navigate through this stage, on this stage. So you, first of all, of course, always stick to strategy and authority. Really work on connecting with these two elements and try to implement that as much as you can into your life. And if you haven't had a first human design reading about your chart, you shouldn't be having a life cycle analysis. You shouldn't be having a solar return analysis, because it's not going to make sense to you. You really need to first understand your own human design, and then you can move to cycle readings. Also, I would really recommend you to work with your strategy and authority for quite some time before you even start with cycle analysis. So in the stage that she's moving on, you will see a lot of struggle for balance. So there's this struggle for balance in the extremes. So you will maybe have an extremely Catholic person and a complete rebel like Miley Cyrus going on stage half naked, and kind of balancing these two extremes. On her stage, a lot of people are struggling with that. And the reason that they're struggling with that is because they're not sticking to their own personal code of conduct, or even the social code of conduct. So that can be a very difficult environment. Pretty much all the stages, all the nodal environments are challenging, because a lot of humanity is still living out of their not self. So the way that the nodal stage is described, or the stages are often described, is by going more into a negative aspect to really show you what can happen around you. And this can also be what you can be drawn into. When you're not following strategy and authority, you're going to be pulled into the drama of people on your stage. Yeah, there's a lot of struggle for balance on Miley Cyrus's stage, balancing these two extremes of going from one extreme to the other. And if she doesn't herself have a strong code of conduct, and if she's not aware of her emotional solar plexus, which is unconsciously defined, she won't be able to take the time to wait for clarity, to make the right decisions. She's maybe just responding with her sacral without taking the space and the time to wait out her emotional wave. She also has an undefined ego, which adds this element of, I need to prove myself in a lot of ways. She feels a lot of pressure from the external environment because her root is undefined. So she takes in the pressure of other people around her, and she has an undefined spleen, which can cause her to hold on to things that aren't good for her. And yeah, all the mental baggage that is coming in from other people, asking herself the questions that may not be relevant to her, and not being able to decipher which questions she should really follow through with and try to answer for herself to gain clarity, or which ones are just things that are coming in from the external world and confusing her further. Any thoughts on this so far?
It really makes sense looking into her chart and seeing the different stages that she's like had in life, different stages, right? Like in the sense of going from a Disney Channel starlet to the complete opposite post-contract with them, to being married, to post being married, and really just finding herself over the last 15 years. It's really cool to be able to see how that is ever so present within her chart as well. And that's kind of just like a necessary step of life within her chart as well. You know, because sometimes I feel like people can be like, why are there so many obstacles in my way? And like sometimes it's just the life path that you have to be able to learn something and grow from it, you know? And I feel like that's, yes, it may have been challenging in the moment, but I feel like there's so much growth that needed to and has happened since. And it's evidence there, you know?
Absolutely. And this is also what I love about self-growth. When you're really willing to, at any point in time, you can change things around. You can decide to be another person, to go into a different direction. No matter what you've done in the past, if you really want to, you can. But the challenge is that you really, really, really have to want to from within and not because of someone else. Or something. Someone else, probably. Another thing that we look at is the profile. So she's a 2-5 profile. In her personality, she's a second line. And in her design, she's a 5th line, and it's so funny that we keep getting 5th lines. Celestina and I, we both have a bit of a challenge connecting with fifth lines. I think we don't have a lot of 5th lines in our profile, in our design, I mean. Yeah. So connecting with them, and we also don't resonate with them in our profile per se. We are a 6-2 profile, so we don't resonate with 5th lines, or not as much. We can connect it to the 2nd line. So from this aspect, they are similar in some ways, but it's still a bit foreign to us. So the 5th line here, it's a lot of people are putting you on a pedestal. They're kind of seeing you like a superhero and a savior sometimes. And so there's a lot of reflection that is happening, that is being projected onto you. It's like a mirror. You're like a walking mirror, and people are looking into that mirror, but it's distorted and presenting a better version of themselves. And that's what they then believe you to be a lot of times. From that aspect, she is a 5-2, so she has this reflection happening, this projection happening onto her in both 2 and 5. And that can be very difficult to handle. When you're looking at profiles, you always look at the 2 different trigrams. The line 1, 2, and 3 are in the lower trigram, and 4, 5, and 6 are in the upper trigram. And as you can see, both the 5th line and the 2nd line are in the middle. So they do understand each other pretty well. In some aspects, they can relate to one another. They have similar themes of needing to be called out. And this is also what becomes important when you're looking at the nodal environments. So when you're looking at the design aspect, you can see that her nodes are in 10.1, so the line is 1. So within her nodal environment, it's going to be important for her to still go and into this investigative role, but she needs to at the same time stay true to her profile, which is the 5th line, which is also about making the right choices of who you're going to help and support. It also has a lot to do with networking, external networking, not in your friends and family circuit, but outside of that. So meeting the right people, but outside of your family and friends and connecting with them, networking. But it kind of adds in the way that she can survive her stage is by going into the details, digging deep into aspects of the 10th gate, 15th gate, and it becomes like a combination of everything. So this is why human design can be quite complex, because you can't just look at one area of it and be like, okay, that's you. You really have to take the whole chart and bring it into alignment and make sense of it. And if you don't know that, for example, the emotional solar plexus trumps everything else in the chart when it comes to inner authority, things can get very confusing. And that's also with the planets, depending on which planets are defining a gate, it can become more or less relevant to you. It can have a very personal aspect. It can have a very interpersonal aspect. And one thing that I thought when I was researching all of this, or when I was also looking into the nodes again, I was just thinking, this is the element that represents an external stage. It is showing you what you're navigating on, like as a stage. But it has nothing to do with you per se. It is how you see the world around you. And then I was wondering, the neutrino stream that is rushing through the universe, that is how we get imprinted. We get imprinted from all the physical elements in the universe. That's also why you can go into asteroids. And that's why you look at the planets. But the nodes are no real object. They are just a position that was calculated, but there's no neutrinos that are imprinting you. And I was wondering, should the nodes in that case even be part of your human design chart? Because there's nothing that imprints you. I know. And if you think about it this way, you would then lose certain channels potentially. I mean, you wouldn't have the 3410 channel, because these 15 and 10, they wouldn't be defined in her chart. And the 4526 wouldn't be defined in her chart. Okay, in her case, it's just one channel that gets broken up. But I just thought that was very interesting. And also, if that would be the case, she wouldn't have her G center defined, which is also a huge thing. So in that case, her environment plays an even more important role if she doesn't have a G center defined. So this was just something that came to me, and I was like, okay, should I question the entire human design chart? Or should I just leave it be and be like, okay? No, but what do you think?
I feel like you had a projector download and you were just like, poof, poof, poof. Yeah, dude, that's wild though. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because it's not a planet. It kind of just is. And I mean, I guess they were in that spot when your design was created, but does that really have it? I understand where you're questioning, right? Like, does it actually have an impact on you? And if not, it changes so much.
Yeah,
Dude.
I mean, Chiron is an actual planet, and that one, I believe, should be part of our chart. But a position that is just a calculation, there is no physical object that the neutrinos can rush through to then imprint you. Yeah, that just made me wonder. So, if you have anything to say about that, people listening, we would love to hear your opinion on this. I would be super curious.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know. I feel like you just unlocked a new level, though.
I like it. I like questioning the things that we're doing, and I always believe not to believe in anything as black and white. Everything is an evolution, and everything, in the end, everything is just an opinion.
Yeah.
And the only truth, in my opinion, is really this pure love that you can feel. This is, to me, it's the only truth. Everything else is an opinion. And I'm not talking about I'm in love with that person. It's a feeling that you have, this energy that can heal things, this energy that can create things.
You know, one of the first times I like genuinely felt that. I mean, okay, I felt it with like other humans, like who I love before, but with the first time I felt it around strangers, I was walking Luna. I was with my mom, and it was like a field day at one of the schools we were passing by, and it was maybe like 400 kids just like out there playing on the grass, living their best lives, literally no worries. I mean, dude, they were like tripping, falling, but like just doing their best, the best that they could at field day. And the joy from all of them just radiated. And like, I was wearing sunglasses, thankfully, but like, I just started tearing up. I'm like, wow, this is just pure joy that they're feeling. And literally, this like beautiful energy is just exuding out of them. And like, that was the first time I just like felt universal joy. It was such a cool feeling.
I got goosebumps. I can imagine this situation.
Yeah, it was amazing. Oh. Yeah, since then I felt it a couple of more times, I think, because just now I'm aware of it. But like, that was the first time I had been able to like tap into the immense happiness other people were feeling, not directly connected to me. It was really cool. So yes, I do believe in that. And it's not, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're open to it, you can totally feel it.
Yeah, that's true. So, I feel like we've talked enough about Miley. What do you feel?
Yeah, dude. I feel like you went super deep, and I'm not going to be able to go that deep. So you're going to have to fill in some gaps for me and homegirl Anne over here. But
let me see if I can. I also didn't really talk about the 4526, which is her, and I also didn't cover her Saturn return, which actually that's the whole point of this. So maybe we should touch on that 1 second before moving to Anne Hathaway.
We should do that.
We should do that. So yeah, you can see in her design nodes 10, 15, or moving from 15 to 10 this way around, because you always move from the south node to the north node in your life, and the turn of that is around the Uranus opposition. And then you're moving from the 45.5 to the 26.5 in her personality nodes. And that stage then creates it's a lot about materialism. And this can be money, it can be any kind of other material wealth, and it is the voice of I have and I have not. And the environment you'll be in experiencing, if you have this in your node, you're going to encounter a lot of people that feel a lack of something. I have not, because as I said, the world is still living mainly in their not self. So you will get more of the negative parts of this environment. Not to say that at some point in the future, we will hopefully move into a more positive way of seeing the world around us. So this is really what you see in the world. So the more that you work on yourself, the more you will be able to see the world as I have, if you have the 45 in your nodes. So if that's your stage. And it's also then moving to the 26, which is a very aggressive energy, and it has a lot to do with propaganda. The 2644 channel is this marketing channel that you may have heard of. So in the negative it is, or in the low frequency, it is very aggressive. It has a lot to do with propaganda, and the aggression comes because it's connected to the thymus gland, which is producing the T cells. So a lot of attack and combating. And because most of the population, 70% of the population, don't have the ego defined, you will experience a lot of this lack of self-esteem, and that just creates or adds to the dilemma of the environment. So for
Hold up.
Miley,
70% of the people out there don't have an ego defined?
Yep.
Holy crap. I didn't know that statistic. Continue.
Yes, we're 30% of the population have it defined, and a very, 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 very few percentage has it as their inner authority. So we have a lot of people. I sent you the talk of Ra, where he's talking about the undefined ego. Did you listen to that?
I think so, but I didn't realize that that was the percentage. That's crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of people walking around saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, and really putting their own needs at some kind of, I don't know, digging a hole and that's 20 feet deep and putting it in there, their self-worth. That happens a lot. So yeah, in her Saturn return, you can see that she becomes 9-0, nowhere to go with herself. I know this is normally something that you talk about in relationships. And she creates a whole unified definition. So everything is interconnected. She also, even in her normal chart, like in her actual chart, she is a single definition. She doesn't have any splits. But here she feels more whole, and you can see that in her development as well. She is moving to the right angle cross of the 4 ways, and when you're looking at the crosses, we have both chosen people that are moving to the same cross. So it's as in not the same cross, but the same right angle part of the cross. But there can be times where you're moving from left angle to right angle or right angle to left angle, and that changes a whole lot of things. In this aspect, it's kind of the same theme, as in the right angle cross is more about, or less, it's more about having less allies, whereas the left angle cross has more allies in a lifetime, and or in depending on which stage you're in. But in this case, she will still not have that many allies that are coming up to her. It's still something, if she would move from a right angle to the left angle cross, there will be more allies that are coming into her life and supporting her mission. But as a right angle cross, it's really about you, yourself, me, myself, and I. It's about going inwards, focusing on yourself, making something out of yourself, and you can inspire others by doing that as well. It's less about focusing on supporting others in your lifetime, but you can do that by focusing on yourself, and then from that be an inspiration to others. And I feel like this is as well something that she's doing. She's been an inspiration to people from childhood onwards in some way, shape, or form. Even as a rebel, I feel like this was, of course, frowned upon by some, but I feel like some were really, inspired by that in some way. Or at least, I personally don't look back at her and be like, oh my God, what did she do in her teens? I'm like, yeah, okay, she was a teenager, or tween. She went overboard, but what do you expect as well if you're in the limelight all the time? And at some point, I feel like your fuses just get blown. I still think that everything that she's done, or everything that everyone does, is a growth process, and she is turning it around. She's really making the most of it. She has grown so much. I don't know her personally, obviously. Maybe one day I will, but for now, what I can see and feel is that she has really evolved and grown, even with her voice, which may also be connected to her operation in 2019, which I read about while doing my research. But I really love her voice. Amazing
vocal
singer.
Nodules.
Is it?
I don't know.
I just know that she had an operation on her vocal cords.
Because so did Adele. I don't remember what year, but probably same one, I would assume. My understanding is it's when you don't use your diaphragm and you're like singing in your upper register too much without like diaphragm use, that like you can get nodes or nodules or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, it's definitely the wrong use of your voice.
Yeah.
And depending on who you are, you will be able to sing in a certain way that is healthier for you, and you may sing in a way that is unhealthy for you.
Yeah. Same with Julie Andrews.
I don't even know who that is.
Sound of Music, Mary Poppins.
Ah, okay. Yeah. That makes
Icon.
sense.
Icon.
I just don't know her name. I can sing the songs.
Okay, that's good. The one thing I was going to note about the 9 and 0 Nowhere to Go, a spoonful of sugar. Yes. The one thing I was going to note about this, I think is very interesting, is that during Miley's Saturn return, that's when I Could Buy Myself Flowers came out. So very interesting that she's feeling very whole in herself and very connected to all aspects of herself. And she's all like, boo boo, I don't need you. I can afford those flowers. Don't worry. You know?
And she split from Liam Hemsworth in 2020.
Dude,
Divorced.
that was the beginning of her.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, girl, get it. You don't need no man. Get it, boo. Get it, boo.
And if you also look at her Saturn return nodes, then you can see that it's moving from 26 to 45. And if you remember, we had the same thing on the other side, but reversed. So moving from 45 to 26.
Yeah.
So she's already understanding the stage. And that is very, very helpful to have had your whole life to have had this certain stage. And now with the Saturn return, you're kind of getting the same in the conscious aspect as well, as at least, or you had it in the conscious and now you're moving into the design aspect. So you've understood it from your mind and now you're integrating it into your physical being. And you can integrate it and understand it much better now.
I wonder how many people who get married at such a young age end up getting divorced around their Saturn return.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's probably pretty common, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
because
so.
they're not understanding themselves as well yet.
But you got married before your Saturn return, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I got married at 24. My husband's also a 6'2", though. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I feel like I've mentioned this here before, I'm pretty sure, but I feel like this is not our first rodeo together. I feel like I've known him before. So, which is dope that we got to come back and hang out together for another round of this rotation around the sun, you know?
Very.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, as the last point on her chart, then we can really move to Anne Hathaway.
51 minutes in. Just throwing that out there, guys.
I know. Feel like I've been hogging this episode.
Nah.
Yeah, I have. But I also didn't expect it to go this wide and vast and long, but I hope that you're getting some insights that are helpful for your own charts as well, dear listener. So the last one is moving from gate 9 to 16, and it's in the 6th line. So the thing that changes when you're looking at the 45-26 is that she moves into a different line. You can see that she's now on line 2, and that does make a difference. So instead of being on a stage where it's more about networking, and now she's moving on to a stage where it's still the same theme, but it's more about being called out again. And also her profile changes from a 2-5 to a 3-5. So this being called out is something that she's also already she is trained for it. It's just another enforcement of her profile. So it's still a continuous training, and it's very helpful if she would know her human design to follow along with that. The 9-16, on the other hand, is about this continuous search for energy. So the 16th gate is about developing skills, but it's not actually connected to any motor. It's only if the channel is defined, you can see it here, then it is connected to the gate 48 and to the splenic center. In her case, it is not, but the reason why this environment is therefore searching for this energy to create their skills, to release their full potential, is because it's not a full channel that is created. It is the energy of gate 16, which is trying to have certain skills, but it doesn't have the connection to the spleen, nor does it have the connection to an energy center, a motor center. So people around her on the stage are focused on searching for things that provide them energy. This can be drugs, this can be alcohol, or a bit softer version of drugs. This can be food, just nutritional aspects. So depending on which environment she's in, it's either going to be positive things like breathing exercises and really aligning yourself as well with your physical body, of providing the right nutritions and doing exercises. Or it can be a very, very detrimental space where people are looking for energy in an unhealthy way. It's kind of just pretending to fill your cup but not actually filling it. And the other side is the 9th gate, which is about focus. And that is really about being focused on details and from that focus, being able to create the skill. And if she's really using her strategy and authority, then she's able to do exactly that. She can focus on the right things that will provide her the skills to move forward in her life. That's it.
That's it.
I mean, for a Saturn return reading, it's very fast. For an episode, it's a bit long, I agree. But I couldn't resist.
That's fair. No, dude, I feel like you went super in depth, and I feel like this is really helpful in helping other people understand their, like, what to look at, right? Because it's very overwhelming when you, first of all, looking at your chart for the first time ever, it looks probably like an alien writing, right? Very hieroglyphic-esque. So if you've gotten this far in your human design journey and you want to dive in this deep, this is an amazing guide to be able to do that. So just a quick overview before we hop in, if we hop in to Anne Hathaway at this point.
Hint, hint.
Okay, so
I think Manifestor is drained.
Oh my god. I feel like it's just information overload. Okay, so big things to look out for, right? Looking at the sun, both in design and in personality, very important. Looking at both the north and south nodes, very important. The transition from southern to northern, very important. Remind me what else you looked at.
The profile.
The profile, very important. And the transition in profile, right? So Miley went from 2-5 to a 3-5, and then also looking at where that transition was from, right? Whether it's a 1 line to a 4 line, or, right, like looking at the smaller line changes as well is also going to be very important within that. Actually within every aspect of it, right? Whether it be sun in the nodes, and then that last piece that you just touched on.
Yeah, and then the next level of this reading would then to be looking at the compromise channels, the personal connection, and the educational channels, because they provide you with an even deeper insight into what it is you should be focusing on, where you may encounter challenges, and where you're going to get educated or learn more about yourself and your life. Not going into that, but that's just yet another level. And then you wouldn't really be going into the planets. You would look at it here and there to understand how it's compromised, or just how you can use the new energy that is coming into your life to live out your potential.
I love it.
I mean, if you would, do you want to go into Anne Hathaway, or should we
pop it on the screen real quick? I'm gonna give it a little bit of a intro into next week then. So just for you guys, we'll give you more next week, but I chose Anne Hathaway because I love her as an actress. Like, saw Princess Diaries with my aunt. I think I was like 8 years old when it came out, and it was like one of my favorite movies that summer. I vividly remember pre-gaming with like 5 Nutella stuffed croissants prior to. That was a pre-game at 8 years old, you know? So that's my vivid memory of like going to see that movie with my aunt, who also has hair like Anne Hathaway did in Princess Diaries. Okay, this is a very large tangent. Nonetheless, I love her as a human. I love her as an actress. So I thought it'd be really cool to look into her design. And she's actually in her Uranus opposition right now. What was that? Pointy finger.
That's our move to the next
Yes.
episode.
That is our move to the next episode. So yeah, I think it could actually be really cool. Rather than looking retroactively at her, this could be really cool to explore her Uranus opposition in lieu of her. I thought that was a good, that's a good transition. In lieu of her Saturn return. So to give you guys just a little quick overview, Anne Hathaway is a 2-4 sacral generator with an open head, undefined emotional center, an undefined G center, and an open ego center. Hey yo to the 70% of open ego center people out there. Learn something new. Yeah. So I'm excited to dive a little bit more into her Uranus opposition with you guys next week, and kind of just explore a little bit more about that, because I would say within the last 4 or 5 years, Anne has made some. Actually, she prefers Annie, but my understanding is she went by Anne at like 17 because it sounded more professional, but really Anne. It's pronounced Annie, but no one ever calls her that. So, fun fact. We're going to go with Anne because that's what everyone knows her as. But she's made a lot of major life changes in the last like 4 to 5 years after having kids. So I feel like that'll be really interesting to explore as well in conjunction with her Uranus opposition. So I'm going to leave you guys on that wonderful cliffhanger.
Fantastic. I love it. I can't wait to go into our Uranus opposition.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening. It was a pleasure being here again. Thank you, Celestina.
Of course. Toodly doodles, guys. Ciao.
Bye.